Her husband kicked her out into the rain on a stormy night, screaming that she was no longer the woman he married. Drenched and broken, she thought her life was over, until his best friend stopped to save her. But when she rises from the ashes, glowing and unstoppable, her husband returns, desperate to claim her back. The question is, will she forgive him or let him drown in his own regret? Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. Now let's dive in. The sun was already dipping low over Accra, painting the sky with a warm orange glow. Traffic horns echoed faintly from far-off Ring Road, and the humid air carried the smell of roasted plantain from a nearby street vendor. Inside Victor and Sophia's house, however, there was no warmth, only silence heavy enough to choke. Sophia stood in the kitchen, wiping sweat from her brow as she leaned over the stove. She stirred the pot of light soup she had been carefully preparing, hoping, praying, that tonight Victor might smile at her. She had chosen goat meat, his favorite, and added extra garden eggs just the way he liked. Her dress clung to her skin in the heat. She was no longer the slender woman she had been when they married 8 years ago, but her figure carried the marks of a life spent caring for Victor, for their home, for every detail he demanded. She thought about those days, when he used to tell her she was the most beautiful woman in Ghana, when he would take her to Labadi Beach and hold her hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. Now she barely recognized that man. The front door creaked open and Sophia's heart skipped. She straightened her dress, smoothed her hair and whispered, "Please God, let today be different." Victor entered the living room with his usual commanding presence, his crisp white shirt neatly pressed, the faint smell of his cologne filling the space. He dropped his briefcase on the sofa without a word, removed his shoes and sank into the chair, scrolling through his phone. "Welcome home, Victor," Sophia said softly, carrying a tray with a glass of chilled sabalo. She placed it gently on the table in front of him. "How was work?" Victor lifted his eyes briefly, his expression unreadable. He took the glass, sipped once and set it down. "Work is always work. Stress. Meetings. Deadlines. At least some of us are doing something productive." Sophia swallowed her words. She wanted to remind him how much she did at home, how hard she tried to make his life easier. But she knew better. Victor's temper was quick and his criticisms cut deep. Instead she forced a small smile. "I made your favorite tonight. Goat light soup." Victor leaned back in the chair and let out a short laugh, not of amusement but of mockery. "Goat light soup? You think food will change anything? Look at you, Sophia. You can't even take care of yourself, yet you believe cooking is enough to make me happy." Sophia froze. She had heard these words before in different shapes, in different tones, but they always carried the same sting. I thought you would enjoy it," she whispered. Victor's eyes swept over her, sharp and cruel. "Do you know how embarrassing it is when my friends ask what happened to you? You used to turn heads when we walked into a room. Now look at your stomach, your arms. You don't even try anymore." Sophia's eyes blurred, but she quickly blinked away the tears. She would not cry. Not again. She steadied her voice. "I'm trying, Victor. I've been walking in the mornings. I've been walking." Victor cut her off with a scoff. "Walking won't bring back the woman I married. The Sophia I knew cared about her looks, cared about how people saw her. Now you just exist, like a shadow in this house." The words sank into her chest like stones. She wanted to remind him that she had sacrificed everything, her career, her hobbies, her freedom, to support him. That every wrinkle on her face and every pound on her body carried the story of love and loyalty. But she knew he would not listen. "Victor," she said softly, almost pleading, "I love you. That hasn't changed." He waved his hand dismissively and picked up his phone again. Love is useless when I can't even recognize the woman beside me." The smell of soup filled the air, but suddenly it didn't matter. The meal that was meant to bring them closer only served as a reminder of how far apart they had drifted. Sophia turned back to the kitchen, her steps heavy. Behind her, Victor laughed at something on his phone as if her pain were invisible. The clouds rolled in quickly over Accra that evening. By the time Sophia set the table with bowls of steaming soup, thunder was already rumbling in the distance. Rain pelted the windows in sharp bursts, the storm outside mirroring the tension brewing inside their home. Victor sat at the dining table scrolling through Instagram. His phone screen lit up with images of women dressed in designer clothes, slim waists and wide smiles. He barely looked up when Sophia placed the bowl in front of him. "Eat before it gets cold," she said softly, taking her seat across from him. Victor dipped his spoon into the soup, tasted it and frowned. "Too much salt," he muttered. "Can't you do anything right?" Sophia's lips parted in disbelief. She had followed the recipe perfectly, his mother's recipe, the one he always insisted on. She tried to keep her voice calm. "Victor, it tastes fine. Maybe." "Don't argue with me," he snapped, slamming his spoon down. "This is why I don't bother talking to you anymore. You always think you know better, but look at the results. Failure." Sophia felt her throat tighten. She stared at the man before her, the same man she once believed would protect her heart. Now he was the very reason it was breaking. "Victor," she said, her voice trembling, "why do you speak to me like this? Have I not stood by you? I've given you everything, my time, my care, my love. Why is it never enough?" Victor leaned back in his chair, his eyes cold. "Because you are not enough, Sophia. Not anymore. I look at you and I see a woman who has let herself go. I see someone who drags me down instead of lifting me up." The words hit harder than the thunder outside. Lightning flashed through the window, casting Victor's face in a harsh glow. Sophia's hands shook as she clutched her spoon. "I'm still the same woman you married. The same Sophia who believed in you when you had nothing. I'm still here." Victor rose from his chair, his voice sharp and cruel. "No, you're not the same woman. The woman I married was beautiful, vibrant, someone I could be proud to show the world. Now, you're just a shadow, a burden. And I don't want it anymore." Sophia's eyes widened. "Victor, what are you saying?" The storm outside roared louder, wind howling against the windows. Victor walked to the door, opened it, and the rain rushed in, spraying across the tiles. He pointed outside. "Get out." Sophia gasped. "What?" "You heard me," Victor said, his voice steady, almost calm. "I don't want to see you tonight. Maybe ever. Get out. You are no longer the woman I married." Tears streamed down Sophia's face, mixing with the rain as she staggered toward him. "Victor, please. Don't do this. I have nowhere to go." But Victor's eyes were unyielding. "Out." Her heart shattered. The thunder cracked so loudly it felt like the sky itself was breaking. With trembling hands she reached for her wrapper, pulled it tighter around her and stepped into the storm. The rain was ice against her skin, soaking her dress within seconds. She stumbled into the street, the cold wind whipping her face. Behind her, the door slammed shut with a finality that cut deeper than any blade. Sophia walked blindly through the night, her tears indistinguishable from the rain. The city that once felt alive now loomed around her like a stranger. Her feet splashed through puddles, her body shivered uncontrollably, and her heart felt like it might burst from the weight of rejection. She whispered to herself through chattering teeth, "Why, Victor? Why am I never enough?" The storm offered no answer. Only the echo of thunder, the pounding rain, and the hollow ache of a woman cast away by the man she loved most. The rain fell heavier as Sophia wandered aimlessly through the streets of Accra. The night air was thick with the smell of wet earth and exhaust fumes from trotro buses that had screeched to a halt because of the storm. Streetlights flickered in patches, casting dim glows on the puddles that swallowed the sidewalks. Her wrapper clung to her soaked skin. Every step was a struggle. Her slippers slapped against the wet ground, threatening to slide off at any moment. People rushed past her, shielding themselves with umbrellas, but no one stopped to ask why she was alone, trembling in the storm. Her heart felt like it was breaking with each raindrop. "Victor cast me away like nothing, like I was trash." She hugged herself tighter, her body shivering. She had no destination, no plan. Just a blur of neon lights from buka joints still open, and the hum of the storm swallowing her sobs. A car slowed beside her. Its headlights caught her figure, a drenched woman stumbling in the rain. The window rolled down. "Sophia." She froze. The voice was familiar. The car door opened and out stepped Adrian. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a simple shirt and trousers, he rushed toward her without hesitation. His umbrella shielded them both as he reached her side. "Good God, Sophia. What are you doing out here in this storm?" His voice was full of alarm. He slipped off his jacket immediately and wrapped it around her shivering shoulders. Sophia's lips trembled as tears spilled. "Adrian, he threw me out. Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't ask who. He knew. Victor. His best friend, the man he had defended countless times despite knowing his flaws. But seeing Sophia like this, broken and abandoned, made his chest ache with a mix of anger and sorrow. Come, Adrian said firmly, guiding her toward his car. You can't stay out here. She tried to protest weakly. No, I shouldn't. People will talk. You know what they'll say. Let them talk, Adrian replied sharply, but with kindness in his tone. You need shelter, not gossip. He opened the passenger door, gently ushered her inside and closed it carefully as though she might break. The ride through Accra was silent except for the steady rhythm of the rain against the windshield. Sophia sat curled in the seat, staring out the window with vacant eyes. Adrian kept glancing at her, gripping the wheel tighter each time he noticed her trembling. Finally he spoke. Sophia, listen to me. Whatever Victor said, whatever he did, it is not your fault. Do you hear me? She shook her head, her voice breaking. He said, I am no longer the woman he married. That I'm useless. That he doesn't want me anymore. Adrian's hand tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. He wanted to curse Victor out loud, to turn the car around and confront him, but he knew now wasn't the time. Right now, Sophia needed safety, not another fight. You are not useless, Adrian said softly. You are one of the kindest women I know. Victor doesn't deserve you if he can't see that. Sophia turned to him then, her eyes wide and fragile, like someone seeing light after endless darkness. For a moment she almost believed him. When they reached Adrian's apartment in East Legon, he hurried to open the door for her, shielding her again with his umbrella. Inside, his home was warm, simple and welcoming. He grabbed a clean towel and placed it in her hands. Here, dry yourself. I'll make some tea. Sophia stood frozen, overwhelmed. Adrian, I shouldn't stay here. You're his best friend. He'll think. Adrian stepped closer, his eyes firm but gentle. Victor made his choice when he threw you out into the storm. Tonight I'm not his friend. Tonight I'm yours. Her breath caught. For the first time that night, Sophia felt a flicker of safety. She clutched the towel to her chest, whispering, Thank you. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains of Adrian's guest room. Sophia stirred slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. Her body ached from the night before, but the bed beneath her was soft, and for the first time in weeks, she had slept without fear of being woken by harsh words. She sat up, noticing her clothes neatly folded on a chair. A fresh set of clean clothes lay beside them, along with a note in Adrian's handwriting. Breakfast is ready. No rush. Take your time. Her chest tightened. When was the last time someone had cared enough to leave her a kind note? She dressed and stepped into the small dining area. Adrian was by the stove, frying eggs, humming softly to himself. He turned when he saw her and smiled warmly. Good morning, Sophia. You look better. Sophia touched her hair self-consciously. I must look a mess. Adrian shook his head. No. You look like someone who deserves peace. That's never a mess. His words disarmed her. She lowered herself into a chair, blinking back tears she didn't want to shed again. He served her a plate of eggs, toast and avocado. Eat. You need strength. At first she ate slowly, almost embarrassed. But the warmth of the food filled more than her stomach. It soothed her spirit. Adrian didn't push her to talk. He simply sat with her, sipping his tea, letting silence be gentle rather than heavy. After breakfast he suggested a walk. The storm had passed, leaving across streets washed clean, the air fresh with the scent of wet earth. They strolled quietly, passing women arranging tomatoes in neat pyramids at the roadside market and children laughing as they splashed in puddles. For the first time in months, Sophia allowed herself to notice the beauty around her. Do you remember, Adrian said softly, how you used to laugh all the time? You were always the one telling stories at gatherings. You had this joy that lit up the room. Sophia gave a sad smile. That was a long time ago. Victor, he took that from me. Adrian stopped walking, turning to face her. No, Sophia. He tried to bury it, but it's still there. I saw it in you yesterday, even in the rain. You're stronger than you think. His words settled in her chest like a seed. For so long she had believed she was worthless. Hearing someone she respected tell her otherwise made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, she could find herself again. Later that evening she sat with a notebook Adrian had given her. Try writing, he had said. Let your heart speak on paper. So she wrote. At first only tears stained the page. Then halting words followed. I feel invisible. I feel broken. But maybe I am still here. Somewhere. Each sentence was heavy but also freeing. With every line she felt like she was releasing a little of the weight she had carried alone for years. Adrian passed by the room, saw her writing and smiled softly without interrupting. He knew healing took time and he was willing to wait. Over the following days, Sophia began taking small steps toward herself again. She joined Adrian on morning walks, letting the sun touch her skin. She ate healthier meals, drinking water instead of drowning her feelings in bottles of soda like before. She laughed, truly laughed, for the first time when Adrian teased her about how seriously she argued with street food vendors over plantain prices. One afternoon, they passed a small park where women were dancing to Afrobeats. Adrian nudged her playfully. Go on. Join them. Sophia shook her head shy. No. I'll embarrass myself. Impossible, Adrian grinned. Come on. You love to dance, I remember. Reluctantly she stepped forward, moving awkwardly at first. But soon the rhythm took over and her body remembered what her heart had forgotten. Joy. She laughed freely, spinning in the rain-washed grass, her wrapper swaying with every step. Adrian clapped and cheered, eyes shining at the sight of her blooming again. That night when she returned to her notebook she wrote, Today I danced. Today I remembered I am alive. Her healing had only just begun, but Sophia no longer felt like a shadow. She was slowly, painfully, beautifully stepping back into the light. The mornings in Accra were alive with sound. The distant call of a hawker selling bread, trotro mates shouting routes, birds chattering in almond trees swaying against the sky. For Sophia each dawn now carried a new kind of weight, not of dread but of possibility. It had been 3 weeks since the stormy night that changed everything. 3 weeks since Adrian had pulled her from the rain and shown her a kindness she hadn't known in years. Sophia stood before Adrian's mirror, adjusting the waistband of her wrapper. Her reflection startled her, not because she was suddenly slim or transformed, but because her eyes looked different. They were brighter, less shadowed. She turned and found Adrian leaning against the doorframe, a mug of tea in his hand. His smile was gentle, not mocking. You're glowing, he said. Sophia laughed, embarrassed. Glowing? Adrian, I just woke up. Exactly, he said, sipping his tea. Even your mornings are different now. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help the warmth spreading through her chest. That day, Adrian took her to meet some of his friends at a cafe in OSU. The cafe buzzed with music, the smell of strong Ghanaian coffee filling the air. Sophia hesitated at the entrance, tugging nervously at her dress. I don't belong here, she whispered. Adrian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You belong everywhere. Come on. Inside, his friends greeted her warmly. A woman named Alma complimented her head wrap. You look beautiful, my dear. I love how you tied it. Sophia flushed. Compliments had become foreign to her, something Victor had stripped away. Thank you, she murmured, her fingers brushing the fabric self-consciously. As the evening unfolded, she found herself laughing, telling small stories, sipping hibiscus tea. Alma leaned in at one point and said softly, Adrian has told us how strong you are. You should be proud. Sophia blinked, stunned. Proud? Of herself? The word felt strange but comforting. The days became a rhythm. Morning walks with Adrian, where the streets filled with vendors arranging kenki and fried fish for the day. Afternoons spent journaling, her words growing bolder each time. Evenings of trying new recipes, experimenting with healthy meals Adrian encouraged her to try. Her body responded slowly but steadily. Clothes fit more comfortably. Her cheeks no longer sagged with exhaustion. She found herself humming again while cooking. One night, after dancing with Alma and her friends at a small gathering, Sophia sat at her notebook and wrote, I am remembering myself. Not the woman Victor wanted but the woman I am. And she is still here. Then came the moment she hadn't expected. Adrian insisted she create a small social media page for her journal quotes and health journey. It might help other women, Sophia. And maybe it will remind you of how far you've come. Sophia resisted at first. People will laugh. They'll say I'm trying to show off. Let them laugh, Adrian replied. Your story is your power. So she posted her first photo, herself in a bright orange dress, smiling softly, captioned, "Step by step, I am learning to love myself again." The responses shocked her. Women commented, "You are inspiring. Thank you for reminding us it's never too late." Some shared their own struggles. For the first time, Sophia felt her pain turning into something that could heal others. Her page grew slowly, but every message she received stitched another piece of her broken spirit. She was no longer invisible. Meanwhile, across the city, Victor sat in his polished office, scrolling through his phone. The glow of his screen reflected in his eyes as he swiped absent-mindedly through Instagram. And then he saw it. Sophia. His wife. No, his former wife, the woman he had thrown into the rain, smiling in an orange dress. Her skin radiant, her hair styled beautifully, her eyes alive in a way he hadn't seen in years. Victor's chest tightened. He scrolled further. More pictures. Sophia walking in a park, Sophia cooking, Sophia surrounded by new friends. Each photo carried likes, comments, admiration. He slammed his phone onto the desk. "Nonsense," he muttered. "All this pretending." But no matter how he tried to dismiss it, he couldn't look away. He kept scrolling, each image stabbing at his pride. Felt happy. Truly happy. Without him. At home that night, Victor poured himself a drink and stared at the ceiling. The stormy night replayed in his mind. The way she had begged him not to throw her out. The way he had slammed the door anyway. He remembered her tears. Her trembling voice. And then, silence. Now she was laughing again, but not with him. With Adrian. The thought hit him like a knife. Adrian, he spat the name out loud, pacing the living room. His best friend. How could he betray him like this? But deep down, Victor knew the truth. Adrian hadn't stolen Sophia. He had given her the care Victor himself had thrown away. The regret gnawed at him. He began showing up at places he thought Sophia might be, scanning the crowds, desperate for a glimpse. He called her number once, twice, but she never answered. One evening, Victor sat in his car outside a cafe in OSU. And there she was. Sophia, stepping out in a simple green dress, laughing with Adrian beside her. Her laughter carried across the street like music. Victor's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "She was mine," he whispered bitterly. "Wine." But watching her walk away with Adrian, radiant and free, Victor realized with a sickening twist in his gut, she would never truly be his again. It was a Friday evening in Accra, the streets buzzing with energy. Vendors lined the roadside, their stalls glowing under small lamps as they sold kalaweel, roasted corn and chilled bottles of malt. Sophia and Adrian had just finished dinner at a modest restaurant in East Legon, one of her new favorite places. Sophia's laughter carried across the table as she dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "I still can't believe I managed to finish all that fufu. You were daring me, Adrian." Adrian chuckled. "I wasn't daring you, I was encouraging you. And clearly you rose to the challenge." She rolled her eyes, smiling. Moments like this had become her new normal, light-hearted, safe, filled with kindness. But that night safety did not last. As they stepped out of the restaurant, a car pulled up sharply beside them. The screech of tires drew stares from nearby pedestrians. The driver's door flew open. "Victor." Sophia froze, her heart leaping into her throat. Victor looked different, disheveled, almost desperate. His eyes darted between Sophia and Adrian, rage and disbelief burning in them. "So it's true," he spat, his voice loud enough for strangers to pause mid-step. "You're parading around town with him?" "With my friend." Adrian stepped forward, calm but firm. "Victor, this isn't the place." Victor ignored him, his gaze locked on Sophia. "Get in the car, Sophia." "No. You're still my wife. You belong with me." The words cut deep, not because she believed them but because they reminded her of the years she had. She took a breath, steadying herself. "No, Victor," she said quietly, but with a firmness she hadn't known she possessed. "I don't belong to you." Victor's face twisted, disbelief clouding his features. "Don't play games with me. After everything I gave you, after everything I built for us, you think you can just walk away? With him?" Sophia lifted her chin. The storm that had once broken her now lived inside her, but this time it gave her strength. "What did you build for us, Victor? A house filled with insults? Nights of silence? Days of mockery? You didn't build a marriage, you built a prison. The crowd had grown. People lingered at a distance, whispering. Accra was a city of stories, and tonight, theirs was unfolding in public. Victor's voice rose. You're humiliating me, Sophia. Do you even care what people are saying? She took a step forward, closing the distance between them, her voice steady. For years I cared only about what you thought. I lived to please you even when you tore me apart with your words. But now, Victor, she paused, her eyes burning into his. I care about myself. For a moment Victor faltered. The woman before him was not the trembling figure he had shoved into the rain. She was stronger, sharper, unshaken. Adrian remained silent, a steady presence at her side, his eyes fixed on Victor. He didn't need to fight her battle. Sophia was fighting it herself. Victor's hands shook. He pointed at Adrian. You're the reason she's like this. You poisoned her against me. Sophia laughed bitterly, shaking her head. No, Victor. You did that all by yourself. Adrian didn't destroy our marriage. You did the night you threw me into the storm like garbage. The words silenced even the murmuring crowd. Victor's mouth opened, but no sound came. He had no defense. Sophia turned away, her heart pounding, and walked back toward Adrian's car. Her hands trembled slightly, but her steps were sure. Wait! Victor shouted behind her. Sophia, don't walk away from me. She stopped only once, looking back with finality. I already did. And with that she stepped into the car, leaving Victor standing in the glow of the streetlights, his pride shattered in front of strangers. Later that night in Adrian's apartment, Sophia sat curled on the sofa. Her body trembled, not from fear but from the weight of what had just happened. For years she had dreamed of confronting Victor, telling him all the words she swallowed. Tonight she had done it. Adrian brought her a glass of warm water, placing it gently on the table. He sat beside her but didn't crowd her, letting silence settle until she was ready to speak. I thought I would fall apart when I saw him, Sophia admitted softly. But I didn't. My voice didn't even shake. I never thought I could be that woman. Adrian smiled faintly. You always were that woman. You just forgot. Her eyes welled with tears, but these were not the same tears of despair that had once drowned her. These were tears of release. I gave him so many years of my life, she whispered. Years I can't get back. I thought his approval was the air I breathed. But tonight, she paused, inhaling deeply. I realized I don't need him to breathe. Adrian's chest tightened with admiration. He reached over, not to pull her close, but to let his hand rest lightly on hers. A gesture of solidarity, not possession. You're free, Sophia, he said quietly. Free to live, free to choose, free to love yourself. The words sank into her like balm. She leaned back against the sofa, closing her eyes. Images of her past flickered in her mind. Nights she spent crying alone, mornings when Victor's insults greeted her before the sun did. And then the storm, the cold rain on her skin, the door slamming in her face. But instead of drowning her, those memories now felt like ashes. Painful, yes, but no longer binding. I need to say this out loud, she murmured, opening her eyes. I am not worthless. I am not invisible. I am not a burden. I am Sophia. And I am enough. Her voice grew steadier with each word, the conviction building until it filled the room. Adrian squeezed her hand lightly. Yes, you are. The next day, Sophia wrote in her journal. I faced him. I stood tall. I did not break. For years I thought freedom meant his love returning to me. Now I know freedom means walking away without fear. She shared the entry on her page with a simple photo of herself standing in sunlight, her head held high. The post went viral. Women across Accra and beyond reshared it, sending messages of solidarity. You speak for us. You gave me courage. Thank you, sister. Victor saw it too. Alone in his house, he stared at the image of Sophia, radiant and strong. The Sophia he had belittled, thrown out, dismissed as useless, she was now a beacon for others. And he realized, with a pain deeper than pride, that he hadn't just lost his wife. He had lost the woman who had once loved him more than anything in the world. Forever. Meanwhile, Sophia closed her notebook that evening, smiled at her reflection in the mirror and whispered to herself, I am free. Morning light streamed through the curtains of Sophia's new apartment in Accra. She stood at the balcony, watching the city stir awake. hawkers balancing trays of bread on their heads, the chorus of trotro mates shouting circle, 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 and the smell of fresh wache drifting up from the roadside. This was her space. Small but bright, filled with potted plants she'd bought at the Agbogblashi market, walls painted in soft cream, and her journals stacked neatly on a table. Every corner carried her fingerprint, not Victor's shadow. Sophia inhaled deeply, her chest swelling with a freedom she once thought impossible. Later that week she met Adrian at the cafe in OSU. He noticed the difference immediately. "You're glowing again," he said, smiling warmly as he stirred his coffee. Sophia laughed. "You keep saying that. Maybe it's the plantain chips I've been eating non-stop." He shook his head. "No. It's peace. It suits you." Their conversations had grown easy, flowing from laughter to silence without strain. There was no pressure, no expectation, just presence. But now Sophia had a new focus. With Adrian's encouragement, she had decided to turn her journal entries and social media posts into something bigger. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice hesitant but hopeful. "What if I start a small group? For women who feel like I once did. A safe space to share, to heal, to find confidence again." Adrian's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, Sophia. You've already been inspiring people online. This will make it real." Sophia bit her lip. "Do you really think I can?" "I don't think," Adrian said firmly. "I know." The first meeting was small, just 5 women in a modest community center in Accra. But as they sat in a circle sharing stories of neglect, abuse, and rediscovered strength, Sophia felt her heart swell with purpose. One woman said, tears in her eyes, "When I read your posts I thought maybe if she can stand up I can too." Sophia smiled through her own tears. "We're standing together now." Week by week the group grew. Women brought friends, then their friends brought more. Soon Sophia's movement, she named it Rise Sister, was filling halls. She didn't just tell her story, she taught breathing exercises, journaling, and simple self-care routines. She even invited doctors and counselors to speak. The glow that had begun with Adrian's kindness had become something Sophia carried within herself. Adrian often attended quietly, standing at the back, watching her command the room with grace. He knew she didn't need him to shine. But sometimes when their eyes met across the crowd, there was an unspoken understanding. He had been the spark, but she was the flame. One evening after a meeting, they walked together under the dim streetlights of OSU. Sophia's voice was soft but steady. "Adrian, I need you to know something. I don't know what the future holds for us romantically. Maybe I'll choose to love again, maybe I'll choose to walk alone for a while. But either way," she paused, looking at him with gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you for reminding me who I am." Adrian nodded, his smile gentle. "That's all I ever wanted." For Sophia it was no longer about choosing a man. It was about choosing herself. And she had. Across the city, Victor's home was quieter than ever. His mansion in East Legon, once filled with Sophia's laughter and the scent of her cooking, now echoed with emptiness. He sat in the dark, scrolling through his phone. His Instagram feed mocked him. Photo after photo of Sophia, radiant, confident, surrounded by women who adored her. Videos of her speaking to crowds, her voice steady, her smile genuine. Comments praising her courage, calling her a role model. Victor's hands trembled as he scrolled faster, desperate to find something, anything, that would prove she wasn't as happy as she seemed. But there was nothing. She was thriving. Without him. He poured himself another glass of whiskey, the amber liquid sloshing against the rim. His reflection in the glass looked tired, older than his years. "Useless woman," he muttered to himself, but the words sounded hollow. Because deep inside he knew the truth, she had never been useless. He had. One evening he attended a business dinner at a hotel in Accra. As he walked into the lobby, a voice caught his ear, familiar, commanding, magnetic. "Sylvia." She was there, dressed in a flowing blue dress, addressing a group of women and men gathered for a networking event. Her words were confident, her gestures graceful. The crowd hung on every sentence. Victor froze. For the first time he wasn't the center of attention, she was. And she didn't even notice him standing there. When the event ended he tried to approach her. "Sophia," he called softly, almost pleading. She turned, her smile still lingering from the evening, but it faded slightly when she saw him. Victor, she said, her tone polite but distant. What are you doing here? He searched for words. I wanted to talk. To apologize. To say I made a mistake. Sophia tilted her head, her eyes calm, almost pitying. Yes, you did. But I've already healed from it. I don't need your apology to move forward. Victor's chest tightened. Don't you miss me? Even a little? She shook her head gently. I miss the woman I used to be when I believed love meant suffering. But I don't miss you. The words crushed him. She didn't shout, didn't cry. Her calm was worse than anger. It was final. As she turned and walked away, surrounded by women who looked at her like a sister, Victor felt the emptiness swallow him whole. That night, back in his empty house, Victor sat in the dark, scrolling once more. He stopped at one picture. Sophia standing at the beach in Labadi, her face lifted to the sun, captioned, I'm no longer who I was. I am who I choose to be. Victor's throat tightened. He closed his eyes, haunted by the stormy night when he had thrown her away. If he had chosen differently, maybe she would still be beside him. But now she was gone. And he was left with nothing but the echo of what he had lost forever. So, what do you think? Should Sophia ever forgive Victor, or is some damage beyond repair? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories from Africa and beyond, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay tuned for more.